Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
It's Mbulelo and Leigh-Ann and Gareth to shepherd you through your Monday. And it is Monday. I mean, it feels a little disjointed after the public holiday on Friday, but people are getting back into the swing of things, back in the saddle this morning, and hopefully you're getting some things done. Not yet, but give yourself a chance. I mean, let's wake up first, right? All righty. What a beautiful weekend. I don't know about you, but I was actually outside in the sun, just on my own, chilling at home on Saturday most of the day, and it was beautiful. Like I genuinely feel like
quite hot.
Skipped. What's that, Leigh-Ann?
It was quite hot.
What? No, I genuinely feel like we've just skipped through spring and gone straight to summer, though. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. All right. So very, very nice stuff to start our day today. We've got the whole crew here. Simpiwe's in the studio in Joburg. And we're looking forward to talking to you and hanging out with you this morning. Got Dr. Hanan joining us as usual because it is a Monday. That's going to be fun. It's going to be okay. So we're going to talk about that in a while. Also, some really cool emails I'll get to from people who listen to the show and have some things to say. And we're going to be speaking to a man called Dr. Wayne Borofsky later on. He's a Liverpool collector. Now, you know that we had a Man U collector the other day who was a runaway hit. And now it's brought forth a whole swathe of new collectors. And by the way, if you've got a collection or you know someone who has an interesting collection, you can tell us about that too. Just send an email to contact@cliffcentral.com. And we would love to have you on the show. So today we got Dr. Wayne Borofsky. He's a Liverpool supporter. And he's got a lot of stuff to share with us today in Collectomania a little bit later.
It's becoming like the elections where if you advertise the ANC, you have to advertise for the DA as well.
Speaking of which, I mean, that's a month away, hey? The elections. Yeah. So, we haven't thought about it much, or I certainly haven't, and I haven't given it as much attention as maybe the news has. It seems to me that there are a lot of people who are very, very invested in the results of this election. And I think some parties are going to get some horrible wake-up calls during this next couple of weeks because people are just gat full, eh? They're gat full of like disorganized chaos. They're gat full of stupid politicians. They're gat full of all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one party in particular will be the one that gets the surprise.
Ass whooping.
Yeah. But yes, let's see.
Well, I'm excited to hear from you this morning. So you can get hold of us. Just drop us a comment in the YouTube comments. It comes up straight on the screen in front of Mbulelo and Leigh-Ann and I, and we could hear from you at any given time during the show. So anything fun happen over the weekend? Anything you could tell us?
I have been house sitting my brother's house and dog sitting as well. So
you got dogs there. Oh, there we go. What kind of dog is that?
She is a cocker spaniel, a black cocker spaniel.
Okay, very nice. Where's your brother? Is he on a weekend away?
Yeah, he went out into the bush, into a farm.
Nice.
Up north, so I'm sure it was a Scotia as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been interesting. It's been it's so weird that like staying in someone else's house can be really exciting and different from what you've been doing because we've been staying in our own houses and that's about it. So for me, it's been like quite a thrill. And like sometimes I had a bit of anxiety. I was like, what do I do? But and also the last time our house sat, I worked out, was about 20 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, when last have you ever house sat?
I'm not the kind of person someone would call on to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think I'd rely on you to weigh out 14 grams of tuna for each of my cats.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm not that guy. I'm not responsible in that way for other people's stuff and for their places. But I do think like I'm planning in my head a couple of scenarios for December already, because I know I said this last week, but it really does start just all happening very fast. And once you're in October, like you blink and it's Christmas. So I'm starting to weigh up some ideas around December and think about what I definitely am not going anywhere overseas yet, because I think that's a bit of a ball ache right now. But I'm hoping that slowly but surely we start opening up in that way. And maybe if we're lucky, there are lots of local specials on. We spoke on Heritage Day about all the things that we can take and be grateful for in South Africa, all the things that we like about this country, all the things that we're proud of as a country, and all the places in South Africa that we can tie to our own history and to the things that make us South African. And that there's a big drive we've got on at the moment called This Is Us, which is part of what Lebang is doing on a Thursday. And you can join in on that conversation, please, if you have any ideas, because it's kind of around what it is that makes us South African. And so much of that may be tied to what, people do on Heritage Day, how they feel about their past, how they feel about the things that make them South African. And we'd like to hear from you too. But I don't know. I've got a couple of options that I'm playing with at the moment, and we'll see. It'll be maybe a week somewhere. I don't think I'm going to go for much more than that, but we'll see how it goes.
I saw
Ted. Sorry, Leigh-Ann. Ted de Boer says December will just be locked down again. Well, I hope you're wrong. I really do.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I saw a video of I think she's like a travel blogger, and she was talking about all the things that you can do for free on your birthday in Cape Town. There are quite a few establishments that offer you free entry. You can go up Table Mountain for free. You get a massive discount at the aquarium. Certain restaurants give you things for free if it's your birthday. So it was her and her partner's birthday in the same week. So they just literally went on a whole, Cape Town shindig with paying about 50 Rand only.
That's pretty cool. That's very nice. That is cool. See if you can get it, if you can figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mbulelo went to the Leonardo on my recommendation from last week. We had that event for sponsors of Brave that I went to, and I said how impressed I was with the building and the view from up there. And so you went and checked it out, huh?
Let's start off here. Maybe the best pizza I've had ever in South Africa, by the way. And I'm not exaggerating one bit. It is unbelievable, the quality of food.
Really?
If I'm going off just that pizza, incredible. No, like, most places, even though they tried, like the pizza's all greasy, and if they do thin slice, it's too greasy to be a thin slice pizza. So then by the like fifth slice of pizza, it's a consistent. They serve it on something I've never encountered before. It's like a beautiful I don't know, it's like a warmer that just stays warm the whole time, and it's not like electronically plugged in. No, it was unbelievable. The whole thing was unbelievable.
Is it the restaurant at the Leonardo? Yeah. It's called Aurum, right?
Yeah, is that what it's called? Aurum, yeah, by the pool there. There's a whole pool vibe going there. Yeah. No, I had the best pizza I've maybe had in South Africa. Just everything fresh, everything. The cheese was unbelievable, perfect, not too much cheese. So
I'm a pizza aficionado. I'll go and check that out if you recommend it. Wow. Okay.
No, absolutely amazing. And the setting, I mean, just top notch. I can't wait to go to the I didn't realize this, but when I got there, I thought, oh, this is the bar that Gareth was talking about. I'm like, it's not exactly the rooftop, but the restaurant, incredible. The rooftop bar was closed though for an event. Next time I'm going there. By the way, you were right, Gareth. I live right in Doucheville, because I did remember I said all the douchebags live in Sandton. It's 5 minutes away from my house. I'm the douchebag I was talking about.
And you said you even know some people who live there in that building. So typically this is where you get caught out,
So I get there, and so I went with a mate of mine, and he gets there, and he goes, oh no, wait, I know that guy. So he knows a guy, and it turns out the two guys we know flew in from Dubai on Heritage Day. Literally, we're sitting there for lunch. Oh my God, Yusuf's coming back. Boom, there walks in Yusuf. Now it turns into a whole thing. Now the lads and everyone's getting involved, and Yusuf's a super international guy. So now all sorts of human beings are joining the table. It turned out to be an unbelievable event, by the way. Just an awesome way to spend Heritage Day. Also, somebody came, Gareth, who you know,
Who's that?
which was incredible, by the way, walks in, said it, and it eventually came up because our co-friend, I didn't know this other guy. Guy's name's Jesse, by the way. It says he saw you at the lesbian party, Jesse Weinberg, and he said he saw you at the lesbian
Oh,
party.
yeah.
Yeah. So he told me he saw you at the lesbian party when all of that action was taking place.
No,
he said he came and said hi.
Yeah, he was he was at a lunch the day before.
Oh,
it was a lesbian party.
okay.
You're talking about the birthday I went to Cape Town for, which you're calling the lesbian party.
Which happened to have a pair of lesbians.
Yeah. No.
Oh,
so
sorry.
He is back from Cape Town. I thought he'd moved down there or something.
No, he has moved down there. He's just, you know, these bigwigs, they go up and down. He's the bank he works for has him up here. Yeah.
He's an important person.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I had a birthday party yesterday. It seems like the birthdays always come thick and fast in August and September too. You know, clearly lots and lots of people born because their parents had sex at New Year's Eve or something. But
were there any homosexuals that you got into an argument with?
No, not this time. I'm pleased to say, not this time. It's a friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time too, easily over 20 years. And it was a really pleasant, beautiful afternoon. It's nice food. And again, people are outside, they're doing normal things. You know, everybody looked like they were having a happy time. And you kind of could almost forget that we were in this ridiculous year that 2021 has been so far. And that last year was, frankly, too. Makes me happy. Like, I'm glad things are getting back to normal. And I don't think that we need to really be paying too much attention to those people who keep saying, oh my God, the new normal, or any of that shit. I'm over it. The Gabby Petito case, geez, crazy and bizarre. Okay. So
you can ask me anything about it. Okay.
Really? Have you been following it?
So let me put out a disclaimer firstly.
Can I just say before you say that I don't know anything about this. I haven't been. I paid zero attention to the news over the weekend, so I honestly don't know what's happening there.
Well, this has been going since August.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know what rock you've been under.
Okay. Yeah. Clearly, I'm not paying attention. All right. Yeah, I've taken a bit of a news diet, so fill me in.
Okay. So disclaimer: there is a lot of rightful concern that so much attention has been placed on this case because Gabby Petito was, since she has now been, her body's been found and it was ruled a homicide, because she is a white, blonde, angelic looking, those are all the words that are going around in the media, young woman. And
sure.
her case, which was initially a case of a missing person, was spread far and wide on the internet, and TikTokers have even helped solve some of the clues after scraping through social media. The person who's
first of all, I'm surprised TikTokers have been useful in anything, so let's give them some credit. That's great.
I mean, they're amazing journalists who have accounts that you can follow. They break everything down. They have direct access to the FBI, so you get to see actual warrants of arrest and all of that sort of thing. So Gabby Petito and her fiance, although they'd called off the engagement, Brian Laundrie, they were living the van life. They decided to take 5 months and travel cross country, hiking through all the national parks. And they were initially staying at Brian Laundrie's parents' house in Florida. Gabby is from New York, from Long Island, and that's where her family is. She was documenting, they both were documenting their travels. And all of a sudden...
She was some kind of a YouTuber, right? I mean, she was already...
Well, yes, they had a shared YouTube account. However, it's now been sussed out that Brian Laundrie was very controlling and actually took over her social media accounts while she was still alive, towards the end of August, because he just started posting on her behalf about himself, which was weird. It's been revealed all the books that he was reading at the time, and that he was reading a lot of books about serial killers, and he had an obsession with flies, and Very, very dark person, no friends, would get very angry with people. They were pulled over at one point on the side of a road while driving by the state troopers because they were arguing in the car, and he was visibly hitting her. When you can see the whole interview from their body cams, and she's crying and she says, we've been fighting all morning. This was probably a day or two before he allegedly murdered her. But he returned to Florida on the 1st of September with the van and no Gabby. He then went on a 2-day camping trip with his parents, where they were probably plotting how he would stay away from police and be on the run, setting him up in another national park.
Yeah.
Gabby, he wouldn't give any information about Gabby Petito, but due to people that he'd hitchhiked from and police and FBI, the reason why the FBI is in on it is because this is an interstate case.
Right.
And they, for days, searched the area where they were last seen in, and eventually found Gabby Petito's body. They ruled it a homicide, meaning that it was not a suicide or an accident. There were physical, proper signs of either something like stabbing, shooting. And just a few short weeks before that, a lesbian couple, newly married, were found murdered there as well. Brian was known to get into altercations with people in his vicinity, whether it be in a restaurant or wherever. So he's on the run. No one can find him. I haven't checked this morning.
And they obviously they say that it's him, and now they're trying to track him down, right?
Absolutely. So what they're doing is they have a warrant out for his arrest for card fraud. He was using what's believed to be Gabby's or Gabby's mother's credit card and identification and PIN number, where he withdrew $1,000, which is quite big money, and that's apparently what he's living off of at the moment. So the arrest warrant is for that particular charge. The reason the FBI do that, interestingly enough, is because in order to get the death penalty, you need to have another charge besides the homicide.
Oh, wow.
So they really start off small with something like that, because something like that can nail down a death penalty when it comes to the big case. So it's hugely interesting.
Is this a big story because it's kind of a mystery and because the whole internet's helped them solve it? Because, I mean, when you said just now it's because she's kind of pretty and white, I mean, I don't know if I'm totally, there seem to be loads and loads of people who go missing or die or get mysteriously abducted or killed or whatever. And those are always the stories that grab attention. It doesn't seem to matter to me very much or to the news.
So
whether it's a white girl or not, what's that got to do with it?
I tried to break it down because I questioned myself and my own interest in the case. And because I like to be diplomatic about the thing and see it from all angles. The reason why I'm interested in it is because, yes, there's this whole mystery behind it and pulling together clues. And TikTok's been amazing. There have been people who gave him a lift and have now made videos of exactly where on the map they took him. And it's very detailed.
Wow.
The books he was reading, the songs he was listening to, their Spotify account. So that, for me, the putting together the mystery is really amazing. The other thing is,
amazing.
I was also a pretty young blonde girl in abusive relationships, and it's now coming out how he had taken control of everything in her life, and he had no faith in her becoming a travel blogger. He said, well, you just can't do it. And the things that he was tweeting about. So I identify with it in that case.
Right.
But yes, certainly the FBI is putting a lot more emphasis on this than they are on cases of missing Black people.
Yeah, but then that's the media's fault. I think that's the FBI. The media is obsessed with this. Then they mustn't say to us that it's about her being white, and then they're the ones who focused on her more than they are in other cases, because then it's them. I mean, that lay the blame at the door of the right people. If you're telling us this story, but at the same time you're telling us, oh well, this story is getting too much attention. Well, you're telling us the story, douchebags. So it's your fault.
Yeah,
the media,
that's true.
like they want to have their cake and eat it. They want to be given the credit for having the clicks and getting the interest going and then when they do that, they're like, yeah, well, what about these cases? They don't get much attention. Well, it's because you're the media. You decide. You give it more attention, frankly.
No one at the FBI, not a single human being, man or woman, wants to go to some douchebag on a blog and tell them what's happening. Is the FBI want to investigate and smash criminals largely? I mean, not everybody's perfect, right? Like you're saying, is they're not volunteering this to the media. The media is framing the narrative. No one gives a shit.
And typically they'll try and inject, because anything with a race angle in it these days is sexy as hell. If you can do that, then it gets everybody in the mainstream media all fired up. They're like, oh, it's a race story. We got to love that, because as we know in this country, and what's become very en vogue in America at the moment, is you've got to make everything racial. Otherwise, it just doesn't sell. Nobody cares, right? You don't get all those lunatics that are completely race obsessed on TV in America. You don't get them involved unless you can make it a race thing. People like, Don Lemon and Joy Reid on MSNBC and, those kinds of people. They're obsessed with that stuff. That's their favorite thing to talk about. It's probably the only reason that those two that I just mentioned even have jobs. Anyway, that's a hell of a story, Leigh-Ann, and thanks for giving me the summary. I didn't know anything about this. I saw the name come up a couple of times when I was just scrolling mindlessly through social media, but I had no idea what the story was. So thank you. Michael.
It's like a real
stay single, people.
Yeah,
stay single. That's the secret.
Stay single. Good. Single. That's great advice, Mbulelo.
Yeah.
Michael says what's happening in Australia is more interesting. So what I do know there is I saw some video of a riot or a protest, or it seems like Australians have had enough, and the government's just coming down like with an iron glove. The particularly in New South Wales and Victoria, it seems that the politicians there are just completely power mad at the moment. They literally walked into a woman's house. They sent the police into a woman's house because she'd posted on Facebook or something that she might have attended a protest, or she might want to attend a protest. So she hadn't even gone to a protest yet. They sent police round to her house to check her out, like Benito Mussolini used to do with people in. No, seriously. Oh, you are going to complain about this president of ours, El Presidente, il Duce. You don't like him? Fine. We come to your house and just have a little chat to you. Huh? Now you feel like you want to complain some more. No, I didn't think so. This is like a Mussolini. If they weren't a government, if and that place, I mean, listen, we give Australia a hard time on this show, but I don't think it's a horrible country. I don't think it's run badly by and large. And I don't have a problem with Australians. In fact, I find them very entertaining, and I find them to be like kindred spirits to South Africans in many ways. But let me tell you, the stories coming out of that place at the moment make me extremely uncomfortable. And the fact that most Australians, it seems, are totally okay with being told what to do, being given unreasonable limitations in their freedoms, being forced to comply with more and more onerous ideas from the powers that be on the excuse that it's a health issue. It seems to me that is absolutely terrifying. And for many people, I think this is probably just a step too far. We'll see how Australia deals with it. But again, if you'd like to talk about anything around that, and you have some additional information, we'd love to hear from you. You just send us a message. Like and subscribe and all of that shit too while we're on it. You know how it goes. Right?
Something I enjoyed about Heritage Day was being around sort of every person that was there was uber ambitious. Not a single person there actually was employed. Everybody was doing their own thing. It was incredible to be in an environment for 6 or 7 hours. COVID didn't come up once Like nobody even mentioned, and we had guys come in from Dubai where, you know, the immediate thing is, oh, how's COVID there? Did not come up once. It was just like, what are people doing? What's crack-a-lack? And people are still doing stuff. So, I mean, living in Australia right now, that sounds not quite Mussolini, but sounds like murder. Sounds like, and a spider is going to get you tonight if you live in Australia. Probably going to need to chop your leg off. Probably.
Yeah. Graham says, have you heard Rob Hersov's speech on South Africa? He tears the ANC a new one and points out some cold, hard facts about our country. Also touches on the racist sentiments in the DA. Well, that's been going around. And we've had Rob Hersov on the show before a couple of times. And maybe it's worth getting him back on. Maybe we'll talk to him this week. And it seems that this, I think it's an old speech that he's made. It certainly is getting a lot of attention now. So I would love to know. If he's added anything to that, or whether it's a new thing that he said. I like him though; he's got quite a lot to say. Australia is just a South African lockdown with a competent police force. Well, that is true. You know, if our government were competent, and I said it before, I go down on my knees every day and thank God that we've got a useless government, because they have shit ideas, but they can't implement them, right? Australia have shit ideas too, but they can implement them. So this is one of the reasons you should be very grateful if you are South African and you're feeling a little down on our country at the moment. And that happens from time to time with all of us. But be very grateful that this place is like the Wild West, because as a result of that, there's no way that they can police us, and that we end up doing whatever we want anyway. It's fantastic.
Was like a video I saw with the guy said, if you're worried about the fact that we were injected with a chip for our COVID vaccines, if you're South African, you don't need to worry, because the system's going to be down on Monday anyway.
That's, you know, like they're talking about this digital vaccine pass that they're going to be giving everybody now. I mean, can you imagine? Someone sent me a picture of a 200 Rand note and said, this is the South African vaccine pass. And that's exactly what it is. It's a 200 Rand note. Just give it to the right person. You're on the system, you know. If you're in a hurry and you want to say, oh, I've already had both of my jabs because you need to go somewhere, just, 200 Rand. That's how it works in this country. We know how to grease the wheels. You couldn't get away with that anywhere else. So a couple of interesting things that we need to talk about. The story of, and I don't know if we've got time now, maybe we should save this for later, story of an evangelical pastor who's being slammed all over social media because apparently he told his congregants that they could speed up the return of Jesus by donating money to a fellow minister. I mean, this is just insane. And it just shows you again what hucksters and grifters operate in the world of religion these days. And they really are some of the worst people. I mean, there are good people in there. There are people who I think probably are quite genuine and have a very real and conscientious faith. And then there are people who are just obviously, patently grifters and hucksters. And that's, to me, one of the most obvious giveaways of that is when money comes up. You know, you can tell immediately how religious someone is when it comes to their attitudes to money, and especially if they say they constantly need it from the congregation and they're living this incredible, luxurious life and spending money left, right, and center and flying around in private jets, and they've got a church helicopter and, church housing for the pastor and his wife and his friends. Then you should know that the alarm bells should go off. You're probably dealing with a complete fraud. But we'll get to that story later. We've got to get some headlines in first. And there's quite a lot going on in the news. So where should we start? Let's go to the German elections, because people in Germany, Mbulelo is in love with Angela Merkel. And voters are deciding who will take charge after Angela Merkel, because she's out. This is the last of her. The fight to succeed her could barely be tighter, they say, as the Germans go to vote in parliamentary elections. Apparently, the streets of Berlin hosted the annual marathon, which, of course, is a big event in Berlin. But no one's talking about the marathon. Everybody's talking about the three candidates who are vying to succeed Kanzler Merkel. And they voted in warm late summer sunshine as final polls put Merkel's conservatives in second place. At stake is the leadership of Europe's most powerful economy. More than 60 million Germans over the age of 18 are eligible to vote, and long queues were reported outside polling stations in Berlin. Voting ends at 6 o'clock today. The first exit polls have already come out, and the race looked over until the outgoing chancellor entered the fray in support of the conservative candidate. Her career at the top of German politics is now weeks from coming to an end. So people are interested in what this is going to be. Calling on all Germans to vote, the president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, said whoever takes part will be heard. Whoever does not vote, lets others decide for them. So they're hoping for a big turnout. Well, any comments on this, Mbulelo? I know that Angela is your friend.
I wish Merkel wasn't such a humble minx, you know. I wish she would leave like King Louis style, is, you know, the après moi le déluge type of approach. But she's probably just gonna just hand it over, move on, go and do some chemistry and go to sleep tonight.
I hate to say it, but that is how democracy works. Are you suggesting that you'd like her to be more of an autocrat?
No. But you remember, so when Louis
of the ANC.
No, but when Louis left, he did the, you know, après moi le déluge, or whatever, however you say it, is after me the deluge. I'd love her to just like do that. Like, Germany will never be the same again. You're all dickheads. I'm out. Merkel out.
That was Louis XV who said that, and people say that it was like a prediction of the revolution that was coming when his grandson, or even his great-grandson, I can't remember what the distinction was, Louis XVI took over, and he was like, this is going to be a shit show once I'm gone. But I don't know. I think that Angela Merkel is, from your point of view, I know why you like her. You like politicians who are competent and efficient and have no personality, and she ticks all three of those boxes.
Stay out of the way. Your job is to stay out the way. Just grease the wheels. Don't be the wheel. Grease the wheel.
Let's see what happens. So just a couple of interesting points here that while we were talking about Australia and we were talking about some of the other news stories, Annette says, my brother has been in Australia for about 15 years and he's moving to New York in January, totally fed up with Oz. Well, I hate to tell your brother, Annette, but New York is also like one of the few places in America that's extremely tight at the moment. It's kind of, there's a good vaccination rate in New York, so they're starting to open up. But it has been, in America, one of the more stringent and strict places when it comes to COVID protocols. So if he wanted to go somewhere freer, he may find that he's kind of leveling out at the same level in terms of laws and rules. But let's see. There's a video that shows Paul Mashatila handing out money during the ANC's campaign. Now, if this is true, I mean, does anyone think that this is extremely impossibly unlikely? No, because we know how the ANC works, and usually in the ANC, money does make things happen. We were just joking about how you can get a vaccine passport probably if you just have the right amount of money on you. But Eskom's former interim group chief executive Matsela Koko took to Twitter to publicly lambaste Paul Mashatile, who's the treasurer of the ANC, for handing out money during a door-to-door campaign in Limpopo. A tweet shared by Mpho Matoho reads, ANC Treasurer Paul Mashatile handing out money to congregants in Limpopo, where he is door-to-door campaigning. So, actual cash money that he's handing out to me.
Our money.
Our money, definitely.
You must make that clear. It's our money. Sure. Our South African, every South African that wakes up 5 a.m. and goes to work, that's your money being used for something that has nothing to do with you. It is. I mean, it's there on video, so you can go and look it up on the internet, and you'll find it for yourself. And it's you know, you could see him handing out the money. So clearly, it's that they're venal as hell in the ANC. You know, anything you have to do to get people to vote for you, even if you give them cash money. Paul Mashatile has yet to respond to say who the money belongs to, where it came from, or what his ideas here are, what he's hoping to achieve. But we can read between the lines, right? We don't need this thing broken down. Anybody? No, didn't think so. And then China is just breathing down the neck of Taiwan, and we knew this was coming. No one respects America at the moment because of what Joe Biden has just done in Afghanistan. So there are many, many people who are looking at the situation in world politics at the moment and thinking, well, if you're relying on the US as your ally to help you against a nation like China, you're in big trouble.
And that is precisely why people are looking at Taiwan going, great to have seen you guys. Great to have known you guys. I know that you're only going to be here for a short while still. So strength to you, power, uzoba strong, because China's not going to come and help you. They're desperate to just teach Taiwan the lesson that there is only one China. And you know how China is about this. President Xi apparently warned that relations between Beijing and Taipei were grim on Sunday, urging the island's main opposition party to seek unification of the country. There we go. So in other words, join us or go to hell. It's that bargain, the Faustian bargain. China has viewed self-ruled democratic Taiwan as part of its territory and vows to retake it one day, by force if necessary. Xi has become the most bellicose leader since Mao, describing the seizure of the island as inevitable. Doesn't that sound like Thanos from the Marvel movies? In a congratulatory letter to Eric Chu, who's the newly elected leader of Beijing-friendly Kuomintang Party, Xi said that the Chinese Communist Party and the Kuomintang Party should collaborate under a shared political basis. In other words, join us. Join the dark side, or we will destroy you. So lovely to see China behaving exactly as we predicted they would behave. No surprises there. If anybody thinks China's got this long game, brilliant strategy, and they're completely unpredictable and they're working behind the scenes, no, it's all fairly predictable and everything's going exactly the way that anybody who was paying this much attention would have been able to predict. And then this is a local story again. The Health Director General, Sandile Buthelezi, has been placed on precautionary suspension. He had 2 weeks to prepare a response to allegations about his role in the Digital Vibes saga, which is ongoing. Remember that was where Dr. Zweli Mkhize benefited from this contract, which was awarded to some of his close associates. And Buthelezi has now been implicated in the investigation too. Remember, this is in the health department while we're going through a global pandemic. And these are the people who make the rules for the rest of us. And we wonder why nobody trusts the system anymore. We wonder why everybody looks askance at the guys who we're meant to be looking to for leadership at this point. See if that improves. And finally, Police Minister Bheki Cele says law enforcement will have the last laugh. He's revealed an ambitious operation to tackle crime. The streets of South Africa, he says, will now be flooded with blue lights during patrols. Community patrollers will also be out in full force during the day to aid police officers. I don't know how this is a story, but anytime that moron opens his mouth, it's more of a comedy show than anything else. So, do you want to add anything to that? Do you care when Bheki Cele says something about crime when he himself is probably dealing with the most criminal people in cabinet on a daily basis?
What a knob,
what do you
that guy.
say? No, what do you say?
You know what's incredible is now it's clear the digital vibe situation is the whole thing. You know what? Since you want to make it public, let's go deal with that one. And that one's nice and easy because it's really big numbers and most of them around. There's probably very few commas. So idiots like you and I'm sure Laws don't need to worry. Where's the comma? It's very clear. They stole 500 billion. Biggie, let's do it, pal. Show us what you got. Show us what you got.
Go on. Because that's where crime, that's where the rubber hits the road. We don't want to hear you talking. Show us. Do the work.
I'm so worried about crime. I mean, but thank God for Bheki Cele. There's just so much crime in my area.
All right. It is time for It's Going to Be Okay with Dr. Hanan Bushkin, who's a renowned psychologist. He's head of the Anxiety and Trauma Clinic in Johannesburg. He joins us this morning live from his house and his practice. And hey, Dr. Hanan, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. You have a good long weekend.
Yeah, it's always very difficult to start off on Monday after a long weekend. It's like the engine needs a bit of a restart.
I'm glad you said it because that's exactly how I'm feeling this morning, and I think all of us are. So we just got to get ourselves in gear and start the day properly. Well, one of the reasons we like talking to you on a Monday is it helps us to just balance the humors in our head and hopefully be able to start with the right attitude and hopefully figure out through other people's stories and other people's issues whether we're moving forward or not. We urge you, if you've got some kind of situation, whether it's at work or at home or in a relationship or with a friend, whatever it is, if you're going through something and you want a bit of professional advice, and maybe an intervention even from Dr. Hanan, that you send us an email to contact@cliffcentral.com. We'd love to hear from you. And we may be able to help you. You can't do all these things on your own. Sometimes you do need to call in the pros. So this morning, I received an email from Liesel. It was about this horrible story of the Dickason children who were murdered by their own mother. And I'm sure that you know the story, Dr. Hanan. It's been in the news. It's a really, really difficult thing for a lot of people to swallow. And I thought this morning, because it's so disturbing, there are probably some stories and some issues that we need to discuss. In fact, Liesel in her email asked that we specifically bring it up with you this morning. So let me just read her email. She says, the parents were doctors at the hospital I work at. A few weeks ago, we received the email that after a prolonged process, their visas had finally come through and that they'll be emigrating to New Zealand. The father is an orthopedic surgeon. He was a really kind and really nice guy. The 3 kids were at our pediatric practice. It took a long time for the mom to fall pregnant with their oldest daughter. We're all shocked. How could this have happened? How could a mom go from one child to the next, strangling them with cable ties after she wanted them so badly? Having restrained many children before for painful procedures, because Liesel's a doctor too, I know how strong they can be and how hard they'll fight back. It is unthinkable. I've spent many nights lying awake trying to make sense of this. My heart goes out to the dad, having gone through the whole process of emigration only to have lost everything. Even though my brain knows that she must have had a psychotic episode where contact with reality was lost, the pediatrician and mom inside of me struggles to understand this. So, I mean, when things like this happen, Dr. Hanan, and particularly where we've got, such a difficult situation for so many people to deal with in the world as it is at the moment, there must be some general advice you can give us, and then maybe you want to comment on what can happen and how these things go so horribly wrong.
Sure, there's so many elements to this tragic story. I was reading some of the background information on this mother, Lauren, and apparently she was having a psychotic episode where it's defined by kind of a detachment from reality. Postpartum blues is very different to postpartum depression, and it's very different to postpartum psychosis. Kind of the intensity grows, and she was having a postpartum psychosis apparently, or there were also stories about her being off the medication. She was on chronic medication, which she apparently couldn't declare because of the immigration policies. And it just shows, if that's the case, it just shows how dangerous it is to get off or change your medication without proper medical guidance, because it can trigger off some really manic episodes or psychotic episodes. So people that think that they're on chronic medication and they can manage this thing on their own, let this be kind of an anecdotal message to you that you shouldn't, because it can actually cause some really severe consequences. So the reason why she did it, who knows? And I was online, I was reading a couple of stories, because actually I didn't follow the story closely at the beginning. And online, social media, the media is so funny, there's so many articles of how do you, 10 ways to tell your mom is a killer, or 15 ways to tell your mother is a murderer, which is just so silly. It's just so silly. Suddenly we're looking for signs and symptoms that this mother is a murderer and this mother is a killer, which is just ridiculous. This wasn't one of these typical stories of an evil person. And even though that might seem, and it is an evil thing to do, she didn't have a history of that. She had a psychotic, and it's not an excuse, but she had a psychotic breakdown. And what's also very interesting, guys, is that I read an article where her husband says, I forgive her. Now it's time for you to forgive her too, which was kind of interesting. How does a father that's just lost 3 of his children to the murder by the mother, just a couple of weeks later, forgive the mother? If anything, I'd love to interview him to see how he goes from, I lost my children to I forgive the murder of my children. Doesn't matter what the reasons are. he says his life will change forever, which is quite true. But how does he go to forgiveness so quickly? It can't be an emotional forgiveness. It's got to be firstly an intellectual forgiveness, but that would be an interesting thing. But I guess the takeaway from this is that these things, getting off your medication and not being accurately diagnosed and making sure that you're on the right medication is not a joke. You should take it seriously. And as I said, if you're on any medication, make sure that it's managed by a doctor. And evil comes in many different sizes and shapes, and it can come out of nowhere. You can have the perfect neighborhood mom that a minute later does something as tragic as this. You know, people think evil is like, you know, the guy that looks like Joker, like the Joker from the Batman movies. That's evil, or evil has a certain face, or a mental disorder has a certain face. But what you actually realize very quickly that it comes in all different shapes and sizes.
It's a horrific thing for many of us to deal with, because we imagine that the bond between a mother and her kids is probably the strongest bond that any human being can have. And you think about how unstable the mind can become and how derailed some people are mentally. Because for that to happen, there needs to be so much stuff going on in her head, and she can't see the wood for the trees, right? And as you say, this medication is such an important part of it. And if you're on medication, you know, this is why you're on it, and it requires a psychiatrist and a prescription and all of that stuff. The best thing to do is to just do exactly what your doctor says, or things can get very badly. They can go very badly. They can get very wrong, very, very quickly.
You know, Gareth, the mind, I always advocate, is such a powerful little machine. It can work out incredible calculations, and it can adapt to so many different scenarios and environments. But think about how fragile the mind is. I can give you 5 milligrams of, I don't know, psychedelic or some form of recreational drug and completely change your character in a minute. In a minute. I can make you go from a complete introvert to a complete extrovert in a minute. I can make you go from a complete non-imaginative creative person to the most creative person that you've ever experienced yourself to be in a minute. These chemicals, we can put chemicals in our system that change us in a minute, and don't even like look far. I mean, you can drink a, you know, I don't know, 10 shots of alcohol or vodka, and it changes who you are. Yep. And that you can do in a minute. So yeah, the mind can really, really shift perspective and angle and perception very quickly. That's why there's these medications. They're not, you shouldn't take them lightly. Certainly these chronic ones, for sure.
And as you say, evil doesn't always make itself known. I mean, it doesn't look the same. It's a complicated thing. And when someone behaves in an evil way, they might not have been an evil person up to that moment. They might have always been someone who is exactly the opposite, right?
Completely. Oh, completely. It happens.
You can't bargain on these things. You don't know whether someone's got an evil streak in them that they would kill their own 3 children or not until it happens. That's why you always, in the interviews, you always see these people going, she was such a nice person. She was always very dutiful and made sure her rubbish was out in the mornings at the right time. And she always gave her kids sandwiches for school. And, you know, she seems like she was a very smiley, happy person. And then boom, everybody goes, oh my God, I can't believe she would do that.
For sure. And by the way, that happens a lot more often than, oh, this person has been evil since he was, 4 years old, and now suddenly he's 40 and he's always been an ugly or an evil person. So that's anecdotal. The reality is exactly what you said. She was such a nice neighbor. She was such a nice friend. She was such a nice, my children used to go to school together, and we used to see her every morning, and we used to share a cup of coffee or a brief greeting. And she was always, and the husband would say the same thing. And in this case, it's exactly the same thing. So it wasn't even hidden. It wasn't even hidden from public view. This was who she was. And I hear this a lot, where even, we see this with suicides and severe mental illnesses, where people go, I can't believe he did that, or I can't believe she did that. She was always so happy. And I'm sure you've seen the memes of like, Robin Williams, like smile, and it goes, depression looks like this. And you see people smiling, and you see people happy, and you see people jovial and going around and socializing. And that's depression too. Sometimes people hide their true, not sometimes, most times people hide their true feelings on the inside just to not be judged by the outside. So that happens a lot for sure.
So, Dr. Hanan, my question, and like reading highlights of what happened, this tragedy, is that, in this day and age where social media is only showing us what we want to see, right? It's like, how do we let people know that people are capable of anything? Because as horrible as this is human beings are capable of this. I mean, the Greeks back in the day would go and watch sort of tragedies, right? And it became a thing, and it was supposed by the philosophers that it was a part of the sort of civilizing process to see what human beings are capable of through that fourth wall. But now that's happening less and less. Is like, whilst this is absolutely tragic, is like, people are capable of this, and we've got to be okay with that. And I know that's a horrible thing to say, probably directly to the family, but people are capable of this. Is how do we tell people that without being crass?
Are you saying that we don't see as much of it as back in the days when they put on a tragedy? I'd say we see more of it today because of social media, because the news is so ubiquitous. We're probably exposed to, and people love a really gory, grisly, nasty, dramatic story. We probably are drawn to that. We know bad news sells. So are you saying it's more or it's less of a problem now?
I think the world has become more comfortable, so much so that we're directly exposed, number one, to less violence. So we're less aware of what people are capable of. Back in the day, if you go back 1,000 years, you know very well, Gareth, in history, is that violence was around every bloody corner. So it's less shocking when this type of thing happens 1,000 years ago. Now,
what do you say, Dr. Hanan?
So it's a really good question, and I'm not too sure whether it's psychologically healthy to assume. And by the way, just the fact that human beings are capable of this, that's a fact. Obviously, I mean, just turn on social media, you'll see what people are capable of. But I'm not too sure if it's psychologically healthy for us to go around thinking that every human being is capable of that, because then we're always going to be anxious and on guard all the time. And whilst that might keep us safe because we always are very judgmental on every single person around us, I think that would be a disaster. If I had to walk around thinking that the Uber driver could kill me at any moment, and the patient that I see every day could kill me at every moment, and my brother's wife could hurt me, if I turn my back, I'm not too sure if I'd be able to live my life in peace. So whilst that might be the case, if people are capable, our brain likes to create some level of even false safety just to be able to cope throughout the day.
Yeah, Leigh-Ann, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, for me, what's the question now is how do you mete out punishment to a woman in this situation?
Oh.
How do you even just come to any kind of decision without having a professional psychiatrist and psychologists with you in making this decision on what punishment she should receive? Because sometimes that's completely overlooked, and it's an immediate death sentence if it's in the States.
Right.
Do you put this woman behind bars for the rest of her life because of a psychotic episode?
Leigh-Ann, it is very difficult. And what I would ask, the community is out, with their pitchforks and torches trying to, obviously, I mean, this woman must get the death penalty. At least that's what I see in the social media, or at least life in prison. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of the narrative, the dominant narrative, just, burn this woman at the stake. And I would just urge everybody to just wait and just hold back judgment. And I know that is even such a difficult thing to say, even as a parent, because I'm not too sure if I would be as forgiving if that had happened to me as her husband is. But I really urge people to just hold back judgment before we know what the story is. Of course, there's never an excuse for such an event, but
No,
the
sure.
reasons might just might illuminate why this happened and how we can prevent this from happening to other people. So before we burn her at the stake, because remember, there's another victim here, and that is the husband.
Sure.
The pain that he must be going through is unimaginable. I mean, we can't put a number on that one.
Mm.
And if he is really asking for forgiveness, for everybody to forgive her, then who are we to really judge? Really?
Well, there are a couple of questions that that are coming up now in the comments, and someone says here, for example, does the immigration law that forces people to not be on meds in order to be able to immigrate or immigrate, does that have some part to play in this? Because if she came off the medication so that they could emigrate into New Zealand, is New Zealand not also culpable in some way for making people come off of these meds by making it difficult for people to just travel across borders if they want to move to a country without declaring whatever their mental health conditions may be, or the chronic medications that they're on may be. And then is the husband not also forgiving her, is one of the comments, because he might have had a role in helping her come off the medication and feels like, he's partly responsible. We don't know, right, Dr. Hanan? We don't know those things.
Exactly. So as I said, we just got to hold back judgment. And the other thing, I know we don't have time to talk about it, but this is labeled, you go on the news and it's labeled South African woman. And it's such a tragedy for South African people generally, because it's like, it's not just a psychotic woman loses her mind and murders her children. A South African woman, it's like the South African variant of the virus that we had, and suddenly South Africa was labeled, which is just a tragedy. So there's so many angles here for sure. For sure, 100%.
Well, I don't know if we're going to be able to solve this, but I think your advice that we should just lay off the judgment for a little bit and let's see what actually happens here. The people closest to this are the ones who will know a lot more than any of us passers by who happen to be reading a news story and have strong opinions. Let's just hold off for a little bit, because what the hell is it to you? If you're this poor man who's lost his whole family and now his wife's in jail, imagine how he feels before you worry about how your opinion.
Absolutely. That's the key.
All right, well, that's a heavy one for this week. But if you've got something, even something that's just a small niggling issue that you want to sort out, we can put Dr. Hanan to work on that. You can just let us know. Send us an email, contact@cliffcentral.com, and maybe he can help you to resolve some sort of situation that you're dealing with at the moment, with a coworker, a friend, someone you're in a relationship with. There may be all kinds of things that we can put into play to help you deal with your own situations. Let us know. Dr. Hanan, always good to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you guys.
Very good. And Dr. Hanan Bushkin is a regular on a Monday on cliffcentral.com. Also, if you haven't heard him before, he's become quite, I think, probably our most popular thing in the week now. We got so many emails from people who just want to hear from him and want to talk to him and have him figure out things that they're dealing with in their own life. And believe it or not, even those of us who think we've got it all under control, sometimes good to hear Dr. Hanan just bring it all into perspective for us.
It never ceases to amaze me how many things people are going through. Like it just every freaking weekend, I'm hearing something else, which I've never thought someone could go through that. And I just wow, his job is secure until Jesus comes back, unless those people donate enough money.
Well, we'll be back in just a little while. We've also got Collectomania coming up. Got a couple of emails from people that we'll get to your comments too. And if you've got something that you want to throw in there, we've got some news stories as well, especially that one about the crooked pastor. The words crooked pastor being used in a sentence just come up too often for my life.
It's tautological at this point. It's tautological at this point, isn't it? To just say pastor. All right, we know.
Yeah. And it seems like there may be some good ones, but they've got a really tough job ahead of them just trying to convince us that they are one of the good ones. All right, coming up, all of that and more. Stick around, cliffcentral.com, Monday, the 27th of September.
Yo, I put it like wow. This that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me. I hope they know by now.
It is cliffcentral.com on a Monday morning. Mbulelo and I are here with Leigh-Ann, and we're going to look after you through the course of this brand new week. And I know it's going to be really tough. It's a whole 5-day week after last week,
Jeez.
which was nice and short. So if you're struggling with that, peace to you. We'll try to make it more bearable. Got Collectomania coming up in a little bit. There are lots of people commenting on the story that we dealt with Dr. Hanan just a minute ago. Christine Groble says, my husband and I started the process of immigration to New Zealand in 2019. When I found out that they wouldn't accept me while on my meds, I stopped it and I had a huge relapse. You see, this is precisely what we're talking about. Also, by the way, another point that was raised by somebody during the break is that a lot of people have been in quarantine. And the quarantine situation may also put additional pressures and stresses on people. So I think that's probably something we need to take into consideration here. And just maybe you've got something to add on this. You can always do that by dropping us a message in the comments live on YouTube. Daniela says, my residency in New Zealand was almost declined because I'm anemic and they do not want you to be a burden on their healthcare system. You see, that's just shitty. I think that's absolutely, that's insane. If you have a pre-existing medical condition, she says, it can affect your New Zealand immigration. It's understood that she went off her meds to make sure that she got a visa. Yeah, look.
Listen, it's difficult for the two comments we've just had to hear this, but I'm on their side because I'm all about making yourself what you want to be, right? Is if those countries have worked incrementally to be what they are, it's not on them to take on another strain. So I'm totally on board with that. And I know it sounds cold, but I would be a hypocrite because that's how I try and operate as an individual in my life is I work hard to be the things that I am. I'm not going to allow you to be a strain on me. So I get the mentality that if you operate at the level New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Sweden operate at, it's like, no, if you are not this, we already have those things here.
Yeah.
You know, we're not taking another issue from somewhere else as, you know, as high level people don't in their personal lives. They just don't. So, and it's horrible to say, but
let's just look at this story with the pastor, because I don't think we're going to discover anything new from talking about this New Zealand immigration situation for that family and that poor father who's, you know, left with 3 of his kids gone and his wife in jail. It's just an awful situation. If you didn't hear the story, you certainly can listen to last week's show to check it out in the podcasts. But there is this pastor, a crooked pastor who's been slammed on social media. Apparently, he told all of his congregants, we can speed up the whole Jesus coming back thing if you'll just donate money to this other pastor. Now, I'm not sure how that works, but they must have been in cahoots, right? Is that how it went down?
Well, I mean, this guy, his name is JC Duplantis, and he's quite a Joe Biden-esque looking person. He is based in New Orleans, and he himself is known for his extravagant lifestyle.
Sure.
You know, you talk about the jets, and he has his own private plane. He's a multi-millionaire. He's this right-wing pastor who boasts about and brags about his wealth. And obviously this other pastor, you know, thought, I want to be like that too. So the two of them got together, and he, you know, this pastor believes that he can just help other people in this way.
Help other people or help himself.
Yeah. He appeared alongside this televangelist, Kenneth Copeland, for a church fundraiser. And he claimed that he believed that God's will was for people to give money to ministers like himself.
Yeah. Sounds really convenient that God's will and his will really overlap so nicely.
He says, I quote, I really believe that if people would call this number to donate, the Father would say, Jesus, go get him. He wants to see us as much as we want to see him. So what's hindering all these things? It's because people are not doing in the financial realm what God's called them to do.
Yeah. Well, here's a picture of this Jesse Duplantis. Just take a look at this guy, and there's him in his
classic.
That's just sleaze bucket stuff. I could tell. I could tell just by looking at that guy. Now, you know, Dr. Hanan said you can't see what evil looks like. I'll tell you what, this is what evil looks like. That couple.
He also
Duplantis
responded.
Ministries. Jesus, I mean, you know, this is where, like, I wish that God was more wrathful, like he was in the Old Testament. And if there is a God, that he would send
slay
down
people.
Yeah, just like a pillar of sulfur and fire to just sort out Jesse Duplantis Ministries. So this is where, like, if you think about it, if you were using my name, and I'm just a mortal human, right? If you were using my name to recruit people to a cause, and it was an evil cause, or you were using my name to steal people's money, I would be pretty upset about that. And I'm sure that God, if he exists, is upset about this. But I wish he was more angry like he used to be in the old books, and just turn this guy into salt or something like that. That would be nice.
First part of the book was more of the sizzle. A little more steak in the... Yeah.
There was more action there.
Yeah, there was a bit more pop.
Talk about people killing their own children.
If you're not watching us on YouTube this morning and you are listening perhaps to the podcast or whatever, you need to see what this guy looks like. Just Google a picture of Jesse Duplantis, and it is precisely spelt how you think it is. I mean, he does look a bit Joe Biden-esque, but he's got this white hair and he's got this fake smile, and he just looks Teflon. He looks like plastic. And his wife, who's obviously in the picture with him, she looks just as much an accessory to the crime as he is. Horrible, horrible people. You could see, how is it that we can see through this guy and his bullshit and other people can't? He's probably got a congregation it's probably larger than our audience, right? So how is it that we, who are not proselytizing anything here, and we're certainly not asking for money from our audience, how come he gets away with all that stuff to the tune of millions? How does he get away with that?
Let's talk about brainwashing. I mean, he says he also, during this telethon, raised the fact that he's had criticism before of the years about his use of a private jet. And he says that commercial planes are full of demons. He says, people ask me if I have a private jet, and I say, yes, and you can have it the day after the rapture because Jesse's going to heaven.
That's awesome.
It's one of those.
You know who we never hear from enough? I'd imagine, people are crazy. There is a family in Israel that have claimed to be the direct descendants of Jesus. I'm pretty sure it exists, just because people are like that. Have they ever tried to do this claim? Like, to accelerate my great grandfather's return, you've got to give us so many shekels. You know what I mean? I'd love it to get
money.
Show me the money. For those people who weren't listening, if you ever saw a show called Dallas, these people look like the Dallas characters, but 20 years later, like off camera. That's what old Jesse
Duplantis.
Like.
Jesse Duplantis. Can you imagine? Like, I know that there's no way that this guy is he probably knows he's a fraud, right? He wakes up in the morning and he's like, I'm going to get away with stealing these people's money again today. And they're so stupid, they'll just fall for it like they have every other time before. I don't think he's one of those people who, like, doesn't know that he's doing wrong. I think he's self-consciously fraudulent. He's totally aware of what's going on, Jesse Duplantis. And as for that other guy, Copeland, I've seen him in YouTube videos too. He's the one who's like, they do these... They're the kind of pastors who have, like, they speak in tongues and they heal people in their church. They sort of push the person's head and suddenly they can get up and walk. Of course, you find out afterwards, if you've been paying attention, that person could always walk, and they pretended to be in a wheelchair for a while for the effect. So how people fall for this is beyond me. To me,
how is it legal? How is he not?
I'm not the world. Like, I'm not the smartest guy. I've been scammed and bullshitted in a few ways in my life, but I think I can fairly easily see through these guys.
It's pretty fun, though. I must tell you, when I was in Atlanta, where Felicia Mabuza Sattl lives, because she lives in Atlanta, Gareth, as you know.
My My husband Earl.
Yeah. Felicia.
Yeah.
I just thought, all right, let's take the piss here. Let's have a full go. Jesus seems to be raging in that whole place. Popped in there. One of the most thrilling 3 hours of my life. I got to tell you.
It's a show, right?
Yeah, it's like a music festival. It was just like being at Tomorrowland with a little bit more Jesus thrown in the mix. Just unbelievable. I get the allure of that part. I got to tell you, electrifying. And then people just throw money forward as well. When you got people riled up at that final level, and then they'll just do anything. And that's when they ask for the cash. It was something to spectate, because I was there to take the piss, right? I was just like, oh my God, I have to see this.
Apparently, some of these churches even have those card machines that go around.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you don't.
Macaulay and the boys down the road.
You don't have to have the cash. You can actually use your credit card.
No, Jesus takes crypto even. Jesus will take crypto. Yeah, no problem.
Really?
Macaulay down the road, before they kicked him out, I think Raymer kicked him out or whatever, is they take SnapScan. There's SnapScan on the back of benches. Oh, no, we're not playing. No. Healing comes at a price, Gareth. Jeez. Yeah, I'll take anything. SnapScan. They had SnapScan on the benches.
It's unreal.
Oh, man.
That's absolutely insane. All right, well, there's an interesting story for you now. We spoke about China just a minute ago, because China are obviously eyeing Taiwan greedily and looking at ways that they can just snap up Taiwan as an extra Chinese territory. They did that with Tibet not so long ago, and it won't be long before they start looking elsewhere in Asia and perhaps even in other parts of the world. We know that they've got a huge influence on what's going on in this continent, Africa, and it's not exactly just friendly. We'll come here and help you build infrastructure. We want all your resources, and we'll take all these perks, and we'll take some of your lucre, and we'll give you a road or a bridge or something just to shut you up, because you should really be aware of the fact that China's coming with an imperial and a colonial mindset into places like Africa. But let's just turn our attention to something else that's going on there. They've got a ban on sissy men. Now, this is interesting. And this is where I think China may be onto something, because the other day we read about how they have decided, well, they're not going to tolerate kids being on the internet for more than an hour a day. So if your kid is playing games or they're on the internet for more than an hour a day in China, it locks them out. The system actually locks them out. So they're not allowed to be on the internet for more than an hour a day. And many of us will say, oh, well, that's just typical of an autocratic, totalitarian country where the government wants to control everything. But this may actually help them in the long run, right? They may end up in a better situation than our country, for example, or America, where kids just spend their entire life on the internet. Now, the sissy men ban is another part of this. China is really getting involved in marshalling society into the kind of society they want it to be. And sissy men seem to be their next target. Now, what do they mean by this, Leigh-Ann?
No, she's on mute.
You're on mute.
Unbelievable.
It happens. It still happens from time to time. Just unmute yourself. There we go.
You're back. You are back.
What do the Chinese regard as a sissy man?
So they use this Chinese derogatory slur called Niang Pao, which literally means girly guns. They're basically males, often celebrities, who are deemed too effeminate. So you look at all the K-pop type guys who are kind of rebelling against this masculine macho, vibe that celebrities have gone for all their lives. And the Chinese authorities are saying that they're rolling out a rule. It's not a law. It's a rule to purge morally flawed celebrities in order to correct aesthetics in performing styles, wardrobes, and makeups. But the thing is that if you look at the tech companies that actually give these celebrities their platform, they're all American.
Yeah.
And it could be true to this extent that the Chinese government's got this hidden agenda of, targeting big tech giants.
Sure.
And it wants to keep, tabs on its own citizens.
Sure.
But China does have a history of repressing LGBTQ communities. So, you know, it's it's a two-way street, this, because now big tech companies are stepping back and saying, you know, well, we're going to make this known worldwide, and they're trying to make the Chinese government look stupid and, you know, backward in doing this sort of thing.
Well, maybe China also are just, they don't care about political correctness. We know this, right? They're not interested in how much they upset the LGBTQIA plus community. They don't give a shit about that. China is not interested in doing what the American government's interested in doing, which is pandering to these interest groups. And while these may be big stories in the US, in China, they're nothing. Chinese don't care about this stuff. And you know what? I kind of think that maybe this is America's fault. Is, you know, America's got such an emphasis at the moment on race or gender identity or on sexual preference. A country like China doesn't care about that shit. They're like, no, that doesn't help our population. We're not interested in a bunch of K-pop singers. We're interested in men who do manual labor and build buildings and dams, and, you know, that's the kind of shit they care about. And it's interesting because the left in America love China, and yet the left in America are the ones who keep forwarding this agenda from the LGBTQ community, and, you know, about all these minor, like, trans issues and things that affect such a tiny percentage of the population. China's like, we don't care about that shit at all. So there's going to be a conflict at some point. Somewhere, something's going to give.
It's just amazing how they really want to, I suppose in an Australian and New Zealand way, want to have control over their people.
Oh, yeah.
I also was watching a documentary this weekend of these enormous cities in China that have been built with not one person living in them. They're all over China. They're these massive ghost cities that make you think you must be watching a video from 2020 when it was lockdown, because the traffic lights are working, you know, the signage is up, the roads are there, the banks are there, the schools, the churches, the religious places, they're all there, apartments. But
Correct.
There's not one person living in these cities. They're building these cities thinking that they can create these idyllic settings for people to live in, but these people aren't moving.
Well,
I almost prefer China's way of doing things. You know, there's a lot of BS in the Western world. It's like, we're doing this for you. China are unapologetic. I like people that are, I'm doing this and it's for me, and I'm not interested in how you feel about it, which is obviously brutal for the rest of us with our Western liberalisms. And of course, it has its many problems. I'm not here to advocate for China or America. I just like that they are clear. People aren't clear. I hate that. I hate sort of, no, China are like, no, we're doing this. We're taking your oil while we're at it. And by the way, we're going to leave with it. You're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah, and we don't care what your gender identity is. You're wearing a dress like Harry Styles. It's nothing about that is interesting or important to us.
No. The fact that you're in an interracial relationship means shit all to us. Or what value are you to us with money?
Well, I mean, we'll have to see how the chips fall on this one, but it's not going to be easy for a great many people whose main agenda is this kind of thing to deal with this, because, of course, I think China also said over the weekend that George Soros is the most evil man in the world. Now, George Soros is a man in the US who's been funding a lot of left-wing causes, and you would think that he and China may see eye to eye, but the Chinese have no time for him. In fact, they banned all of his NGOs, and you cannot operate an NGO like that in China. Any foreign-funded NGO has been shut down in China. Again, they seem to have their priorities right for China, not for anyone else. And there are other countries in the world that have completely forgotten that their priority is for their own people. I don't know if you've been watching what's going on in the US at the border in Texas, but they've got a major problem there. They've got a bunch of what they call Haitian refugees. These are people from Haiti, which is, by the way, an island in the Caribbean. Somehow these guys, these mostly men, have come across the Rio Grande. I think it's the Rio Grande, the river in that separates the border between Mexico and Texas in this case, and have just decided to settle themselves on the US side of the river, under bridges and in makeshift shelters and out in the open, basically. And it just seems to be an out of control situation, which the US administration under Joe Biden seems hopeless to actually counter. So I don't know what's going on there, but it would be interesting to hear what develops in that situation over the next while. Because again, America's stuck between, do we have open borders and we just want everybody who's having a terrible time in their own countries to just be able to march in to America? Or do we actually have certain rules that you have to comply with if you want to be American? Who knows what the answer to that is? But that administration is trying to straddle that divide at the moment, and we'll see how that goes. Sometimes Mbulelo's socialist tendencies really grate my nipples, says Carl. Yeah.
And hey, listen, Carl, I went for a health test. I am in fine fettle. Your nipples are going to be non-existent because I'm about to be around for another 50 years. That's going to be tough.
Yeah. And then Freedom Fighter says, isn't there a brand called Sissy Boy?
Yeah,
There is.
those jeans, our denims.
TikTok for thee, but not for me, says Rob Hutchinson. That's exactly right. That's kind of Chinese policy there. Why is everyone hating on Xi Jinping? He just makes the toys.
I was actually going to say, that's so funny, is we are trapped here, is because people are like, oh, damn it, China. But bloody hell, do I love the iPhone 12 Plus. You know, I like being able to afford that. Unfortunately, you've got to have no labor laws in order to have that cost not 100,000 Rand.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer is to that Chinese situation. We'll have to just watch and wait and see, but I don't think it's going to be compatible with what's going on in the woke Western world, where clearly a lot of this stuff just is a whole, it's a powder keg, a clusterfuck. It's just waiting for something to go wrong. It's a mess.
But is the irony not that they're typing it on their iPhone? Is that not that's the great irony?
Which was probably made by children in some poor country somewhere, But
China.
We're so woke.
No, I mean you saw.
Yeah.
It's
they also
made in China.
they make some of the components in places like Vietnam, and you know what it's like. It's all very complicated. All right. We've got Cliff Central Sport coming up a little later on today, and Mbulelo's got some interesting stuff going on there. Apparently, just on a related, slightly tangential related story to sport, is apparently LeBron James's agent, that is the person who is in charge of administering and managing LeBron James's career. Of course, he's a famous basketballer. His agent is dating Adele, the singer.
Yeah, dude called Rich Paul. Yeah, it's a wow. When I heard that, we got a guy called Kerry Keating on our show on Thursday. I was like, Adele's dating a Rich Paul. In my mind, I'm like, where did they meet? Like he's yo, LeBron, and she's I'm Adele. I'm singing I'm Adele. Like, oh yeah, I'm Adele. How you doing? I'm singing 19. Remember that? That whole thing. Like, where did they meet? Where does Rich Paul meet Adele? You know what I mean?
Come on, these people hang around in the same circles. You got money, and if his name is Rich, for God's sake, he's probably very wealthy. So probably. And Adele's looking terrific. I mean, she's been on this major health trip recently, and she's lost a lot of weight, and she's obviously enjoying her life a whole lot more now because she doesn't have to drag around an extra 60 kilograms of herself. And she's clearly going out in the town and meeting people, and she's decided she wants a relationship, and not one that she's going to moan about in her songs, hopefully.
Yeah, I did have all of the sort of racial stereotypes in my mind that went through because I was playing out all the situations with a friend of mine when I heard this, in terms of like, how did the pickup game go? Hey, yo, what's up, Adele? How you doing? I'm from, I don't know, Onslow, bangers and mash. Yeah, girl, your ass fine. I did that whole thing. A friend of mine, she didn't enjoy it.
In your head,
I was being slightly racist.
Both roles.
Yeah, I was playing both roles, and I was being what some people might call a little edgy in 2021. Oh, so I just found that funny.
Sub says it's obvious. Adele just called Rich and said, hello. What's this? Khale says, I should hurry up and dump him to get an album out. All right. We got to get to Collectomania this morning, which is always my favorite part of the week, and that's why we put it on a Monday to start your week off properly. And I speak to a guy called Dr. Wayne Borowski. He is a big Liverpool fan, and just the other day we had another doctor on who's a massive Manchester United fan, and it was great to see his collection. So in the interests of not upsetting the Liverpool fans, we decided we needed to also find someone who's a massive collector in that respect, and we have found such a person. Now, you remember we met Dr. Barry, and this week the Liverpool doctor is a completely different kettle of fish. He is Dr. Wayne Borowski. He's been collecting Liverpool stuff since he was a kid. His figurines have been collected over the past 15 years, and he's got some of those as well as his Liverpool collection. So let's go straight to him and see what he's up to. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Hi, you legends. Good morning, everybody, and honored to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's good to see you. So I see all the Liverpool stuff on the, first of all, you're wearing a shirt, which is awesome, but I see a whole lot of the memorabilia on the walls and things there. I don't know if you saw Dr. Wayne with us, Dr. Barry with us last week.
Sure,
but
he's a legend.
He's terrific, and he's got this unbelievable collection of Man U stuff. Do you know him?
I know Barry very well. It's actually amazing. We often have similar patients. Obviously, we do different things to the patients, but often when he's treating them, they're mostly under anesthetic. So you can't traumatize them with the notion of being a Man United fan. With me, I have their necks and their backs in my hands, so it's a lot more lethal if they really want to upset me. But he's an absolute legend, Gareth. He's a phenomenal man.
So you're a collector, and you probably know that there are people like you and I and Dr. Barry. We're all a little bit crazy. We start to get involved and obsessed with certain things, and we collect stuff in sometimes unnecessary and unreasonable quantities. And it all depends on how deep down the hole you go. Some people are enormously obsessed and base their entire life. They rebuild their house in order to accommodate their collections. They were willing to sacrifice relationships and God knows what else just to keep their collection going. But others are a little bit more reasonable. So how did this all start with you? Let's get into how it all began.
So I did listen to your one with Barry, and most of the guys with Liverpool or any football team, it's often through dad's influence. So that's obviously was the original route. But in 1989, there was that horrific Hillsborough disaster that a lot of people know about, where the fans were crushed. And I was a little Oaken son at 5, grade 7 nowadays, and I was inconsolable. And it didn't make any sense to me. I don't know if it was a past life regression or if perhaps I was the Beatles in a past life, but I had no link there. I had no family there, and some link to this amazing club. And that's pretty much what started the journey with Liverpool. And it's just got stronger over the years, and it's just been a phenomenal road.
So what do you collect? I mean, I could see some of the stuff in the picture behind you, but tell us what collection prizes are.
So obviously all the tops each season, and then I've got all the signed shirts that we get from a certain company here, which is all the memorabilia that's signed from the players. And then the other side of the world is if I have a better day with Liverpool, I can switch to the Marvel DC world, which I know I spoke to you guys about as well, which as you know is also a huge world with the figurines. And what do you buy your 30-year-old son who's a bachelor? So my parents got me a Liverpool Batman and Superman figurine, and that started that journey when I was 30. And when we moved into Synergy Holistic, our medical center, the interior designer lady said, "You're not putting your Liverpool and your figurines in." And I said, "Hey, Lee, doll, I am." You want to have fun in your office. We're dealing with pain on a serious note. Barry will tell you, patients come to us not because they want to, because the guys, in such a dark world and a cynical world, you want to have a bit of fun. So it's always a great topic. I've even had grannies. My one patient is 110, and she despises Elvis. Yep, Lee, and she despises Elvis Presley. And then we got into talking about Liverpool, and I got her to giggle, and we had a great chat. And so it's always a great point of reference to go to with the figurines in Liverpool.
It's a nice icebreaker too, because people often look at doctors and they think you guys are superhuman. You don't have any life outside of being a doctor, and we think of you quite one-dimensionally. Obviously, the more we get to know our doctors, the more we tend to like them and gravitate towards their personalities, especially if we've been going to you for years. But it can be quite forbidding to go into a doctor's rooms and everything is very organized and clean and clinical and not necessarily any signs of personality. I think it's much better to go into a doctor's rooms and he's got like DC and Marvel figurines all over the place. I think that's quite cool.
Gareth, I think one of the big things which is influenced in the movie Patch Adams, is humor. Healing, and this is a big thing now. Like, we don't always take it on a jovial level with pathology and that, but if you can create humor in a lot of ways, that's part of healing. And nothing like a bit of laughter, and that's the joy of life. You've got to try create some level of positivity when you're healing people.
Let's take a look at some of your stuff. First of all, there's this shirt here. This is a Liverpool top. This is from when, and who signed it? I can see lots of signatures on there.
Yeah, this is the league that we won after 30 years and 2 years ago, which obviously I think Liverpool won the league and then COVID entered. So maybe God upstairs, I heard you talking about him, maybe he wasn't happy that we won the league and they created COVID. So that's signed by the team where we won the champions a year ago, 2019, 2020. Wow. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, some of this stuff is obviously quite valuable. Is it hard to find, or is it easy to get hold of if you're prepared to pay?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the golf days and auctions, the guys do that, and there are certain companies that do source these for you. So there are collectibles, which down the line will have great value. It's a very special piece.
I'm going to bring Mbulelo in on this, because you will know, I mean, from the exposure you have to people in sport and the sporting world, sports memorabilia is a massive, massive industry, right?
Oh, yeah. No, huge. And, the thing about sports clubs is, unless you're kind of on the inside here, is it's very difficult to explain this to people, is it's unique. It's even better than a wife, because you never really get to choose your wife. She's kind of from around your family, your economic status, you know what I mean? So you don't really actually get to choose your wife. Your life circumstances determine that. You choose your football club. That is the most unique relationship a man can ever have. You can choose Chelsea, Arsenal, so to the dock. And then once you get to buy the memorabilia, it's becoming, and it's just getting started, by the way, with NFTs coming into it. It's a billion, if not trillion by now, dollar industry. So, hey, Doc, you are onto something. You are onto something. And it's
definitely are. How about this? Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying, you guys mentioned him earlier, LeBron James. So what the guys, particularly with Liverpool, we've been bought up by FSG, Fenway Sports Group, who own the Boston Red Sox. And Liverpool was in like a quagmire a few years ago with a lot of financial issues. And when they get guys like that who have linked on, as you say, the ambassadors, I mean, he will just do a simple tweet, and then the followers that he's got there linked to Nike and that, as you say, it definitely promotes the brand of the club and that. So that's the link there.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so tell us what these two shirts are, because I can recognize both of them, but I don't know who the signatures are. So tell us who's on there.
Okay, so that's pretty much the top one is actually when we won the Champions League in 2005 with Rafa Benitez. And the bottom one is actually, it was a bittersweet moment. I was actually at that game when Steven Gerrard slipped. We were a point of winning the league, and he slipped against Chelsea, and we lost the league. So that's the shirt signed there. Just shows you that at Liverpool, we do have patience. We're not like Manchester who throw tantrums. It still goes on the wall.
And is the Gerrard signature on that shirt also, did he slip while doing the signature too?
Yes, yeah. Shame, man. It broke him, eh? I mean, he says he has sleepless nights still to this day, but he's a legend, and we're all human, and guys make mistakes, and so he's a phenomenal man, eh?
What about this? Here are some of the DC and Marvel figurines. So how many of these do you have?
So these collected, like I said, when I was from 30. I'm 44 now. In fact, originally started, I had a big Superman picture that I wanted to put above my bed, and my mom and my sister said, "You're not putting it above your bed if you ever want to get married." So that is what led to me collecting the figurines, and quite a few. I've collected them over the years. I've got some very special pieces from the different elements of Marvel and DC world. Probably over about 120 pieces.
I mean, isn't DC and Marvel a bit like Man U and Liverpool? Like if you you have to be one or the other, right? People don't take you seriously if you're into both. People are like, nah, you're full of shit. You have to be a DC person or a Marvel person. You have to be a Man U supporter or a Liverpool supporter. You can never be both.
So you know what? Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's only one real superhero who's Superman, and then the others are. It's nice to watch and that, and then when the Marvel guys come in, I'll chirp them, about DC. Like it's always good to live and to have. You got to promote yourself in life, and you got to try to step up. So some guys, same as Man United guys, you go your whole life and not knowing like I always say to patients, you go your whole life having Bovril and then know the secret of Marmite at the end of your journey. It's the same story. Like, you can go through that journey, when you know what greatness is, when you get to DC and Liverpool.
All right, here's a Spider-Man poster. This is next to your little cabinet of all your figurines. So what is this?
These are quotes I had done just for inspiration for patients. So it's pretty cool, especially the kids love it. It's actually funny when the kids walk in there, you always expect the kids to be the most excited, but some of the parents, the fathers, like they get more excited. And then you lose them for that second when you try to do a case history with that, like why are they here to see you? And then you pretty much got to pull them back in and rein them back in because they get totally overwhelmed by it and they start to look at all the figurines. So it creates great joy. And like you said, it's a great icebreaker when you want to chirp the guys.
And also, I suppose for some of them, it just puts them at ease. It's no one wants to go to the doctor. You usually go when something's wrong with you or when you're concerned about something. So if you can go there and actually be a little bit distracted, it probably makes people calmer and more receptive to listening to you and to paying attention to themselves and their health a little bit more closely. I think it's terrific. It's just it's friendly. It's fun. Why do you have an Argentina shirt? This is interesting to me, and this is something I would like. Tell me about this.
Okay, it's pretty much because of Diego Maradona. That was when I was a little oaky, and the same with him. I mean, he was a big influence through my dad, and just loved him. I think if you read up about him, I think that a lot of the guys were very much against him. I think there was a lot of jealousy towards him. You see with a lot of these superstars that don't get guarded properly. A lot of these kids are very impoverished. He got into drugs in Napoli with the mafia there in Barcelona. It was very sad. A phenomenal man, probably the ultimate footballer of all time, would be arguably from a lot of guys. But that's the whole Argentina link. That's, I would say, my national side, even though I'm South African. But I just love the journey through Diego.
Is Maradona's signature on that shirt?
No. This is the side from the World Cup in 2014, which is Messi and those chaps.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because that's my team when the World Cup rolls around, Argentina.
Amazing. Good.
For years. All right. Well, listen, this is really cool. Would you suggest that people, who don't collect, because we know a couple of these people that they're not as obsessed and crazy as you and I or any of the other people we've had on Collectomania. What does it do for you? Because you've spoken quite nicely about what it means to the patients and how it helps to just make you more accessible to them. And you have fun doing it, obviously. But what does it do for you? I mean, when you acquire something that you've looked for and wanted for a long time for your collection, how does that feel? And explain to people why it's such a big deal for us, those of us who collect.
I think that it just gives me a perspective. We often get lost in the journey. We get into a rut in work or we get into a rut in life and that. So with my type of work, you're dealing with pain all day with patients. And sometimes just you turn and you have a quick look at something or one of the quotes here that I'll read here and that, and it just actually ignites you in a way. And, I think it's great to have interest in life and, it can be anything. That's the beauty of life. We have to cherish, if anything we've learned in the last 2 years is we must be in the moment. And on a musical, which is one of my passions, I can't blast musicals in here with patience. But the one thing is a musical called Rent, which is No Day But Today. And that's very much how we grew up, my family, is just live in the moment. And I think with figurines and collectibles on any facet, I've got patients from cigars or collect, I've seen a lot of your Collectomania stuff you guys do. I mean, it's amazing. But for me, it ignites me and it gives me perspective of a little bit of celebration every day of life. And pretty much it just reignites it for me every day. And that's the reason what fulfills me. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. So we've got obviously to thank the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop for making this possible every week for us, because we found the most incredible people. And here we have a second doctor in a row who collects all kinds of sports memorabilia, and in this case also with Dr. Wayne, he's got like a whole bunch of figures, action figures too, from the DC and Marvel universe. If you have a collection that you want to share with us, get hold of us on contact@cliffcentral.com, and we would love to have you on and feature you and your collection. You may as well show off a little bit. I was talking to someone on Friday, and she told me that she's got a relative who collects Pez dispensers. You know those Pez dispensers? But like hundreds of them. Every imaginable Pez dispenser you could think of. And this is the collection, and I'll try and get that person on, because I think that's pretty wild. Imagine collecting something as specific as that. Amazing.
It's beautiful.
Incredible.
It is beautiful. Doc, thanks very much for your time this morning. It's good to see you.
Be safe, guys. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Cheers.
You too.
Bye,
There we go.
everybody.
Isn't that cool?
So
Yeah,
cool.
that is cool.
All these people with these weird collections. It makes me feel very normal with my collections. There are plenty of those. Michael says his collection is immaculately presented, beautiful to look at for sure. The vibrant colors pull the eye. I love these collection encounters. Yeah, it's definitely like it's a wacky thing, and not everybody's into it, but it makes everything about that person just seem that little bit more intriguing, right?
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah.
also says, I collect crypto, but I'm not ready to show that off yet. Well, I mean, we spoke about China earlier. It looks like China are also bearing down on the crypto market and banning outright some of the cryptocurrencies and their use. Wait, hang on. I think my camera's just gone off. Let me try and fix that quickly.
Or maybe the
Becomes
Chinese.
Three
probably the
lazy
Chinese.
dots.
Let me just try and figure this out. There we go. Is that better?
You're back.
You can see me now?
Yes.
Sorry, that obviously the camera's battery died or something. But yeah, the Chinese are also now stepping into the cryptocurrency world and making that a little more complicated for people who are trying to mine or trade with cryptocurrencies there. But I see
Ooh.
Bitcoin's back to healthy levels of 44,000. It did go all the way up to 48,000 a little while ago. And we'll see. Maybe China doesn't have the kind of power that it thinks it does. Or maybe it's trying to cut off my camera. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah. Gen X just commenting on Dr. Wayne's collection, saying, I think it's great. Reminds you your doctor is just a human. Yeah. Because people, they tend to put, doctors and politicians and sports people on pedestals, when the only thing on pedestals in Dr. Wayne's life are the action figures.
Yeah. It could go two ways though. I mean, maybe you want a doctor who does absolutely nothing but research your ailment,
Well, that'd be a very boring person, don't you think? And also, I don't think they need to be researching your particular ailment. That's what they trained and studied for. I'm sure that they're on top of things. He's not. It's not like he's letting his practice languish while he's out there trying to find Liverpool shirts.
No, I doubt that.
But I do like the idea, and Beth says this too, that more doctors should personalize their consulting and treatment spaces. Well, not just doctors, everybody. I don't know if you've been in one of those big offices where everybody has their, little partition desk and, those massive open working spaces, which we used to have before COVID, obviously. And there's some people who would personalize their desks, have like pictures of their kids and, little toys or little posters or little pictures on the dividers between the different desks. That kind of stuff is cool.
Yeah.
You got to
You
personalize.
look at pediatricians and pediatric surgeons, just thinking of my cousin who now has her practice. Those places are all about the decor and making it fun for kids who are sitting in the waiting room.
Is that the cousin
having these
who
like tactile walls?
That's the doctor cousin who fixes children's assholes, right?
She builds assholes. Yes,
Builds assholes. Yeah, we've had her on.
Build assholes, vaginas, penises. Very good
amazing.
at that. Her Lego experiences when she was young were very interesting.
I'm sure.
We could never figure out what they were, but now we know.
Yeah, I think it's really important to personalize your workspace. Obviously, in your house, it's easier than in an office. And some people prefer to have these extremely clinical, sterile, very straightforward workspaces. They must be minimalistic, and it can look like anyone else's office and shouldn't have any personality at all. I'm not like that. I couldn't work in a place like that. It has to be me. It has to be a little bit personalized. Otherwise, I'll never really be able to work there comfortably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how would you feel if like your Uber driver had personalized their car?
Well,
with fluffy dice and tissue
think
box
it's
in the
cool.
back.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Don't you think that's okay?
It would be kind of fun. I mean, that's what they do on islands, like in Mauritius. The buses are fully decorated. It's very cool. Lots of fun.
I get the feeling Mbulelo would like the much more straightforward, paint by numbers, not very personalized workspace. Am I right?
Yeah, it all gets a bit much for me. Like people want to try and express their deepest idiosyncrasies. It's like, no, just get it done. you know. So I'm not a doctor, though.
You wouldn't really care. Like if you walked into a room and it was functional and it did its job, you wouldn't care what color the walls were.
Not at all. I don't like to be sort of stimulated by extrinsic sort of factors. I like no, I'm doing here. I'm where my feet are. You know, I'm not into people trying to express who they are around me, so I can know they're special. Just do what you're doing. Carry on. But I do think we need the variety.
No, you're the opposite of me then. Witch doctors have been personalizing their workspaces for years, says V.
That's very true. Vumanibo.
No. By the way, on that note, my brother and his wife, their domestic worker is a full-on sangoma. She's going through she's twasang at the moment and doing all the stuff and going through the courses and doing the sacrificing and all that kind of stuff. And my brother's quite excited. He says he likes the idea that they have a sangoma working for them.
Yeah.
Did she get the calling?
Yeah, the whole thing.
As long as she's got their backs, then it's fun.
Yeah. And my brother's like, no, bring all your muti here. We'll all wear the little bracelets and all that stuff. He's dead keen on it.
And
so
is she Zulu or do you know?
No,
Okay, so
Zulu.
she's full. She's the full thing, huh? The platinum
Or he's-
package.
Careful
Or
now
he's
because
pretending to like it.
you're gonna upset everybody else in Mbulelo if you give the Zulus preference. You know what happens.
Oh, no,
You-
but I mean, they are like Zulu people for our international listeners, they really believe there is only two tribes, like, and genuinely, there are Zulu people and there is everybody else. They are insufferable. I mean, I have my closest mate is Zulu, and they are the most insufferable bunch of, although they did beat the British. So it's annoying when there's actual tacit history to somebody's kind of arrogance, It's like, yeah, okay, you do have the most manly men in this country. You probably do. So that's very annoying.
Maybe it's a bit like China, which keeps coming up on the show this morning. China's just made more entries into the show without our permission than anything else today. We've been talking about a whole bunch of things, but China keeps coming up. And maybe the Zulus, if they were totally in charge of South Africa, would run it a bit more like China than they would anything else.
Sorry, on the Sangoma front, sorry, Gareth, before you move on, is I once, or not once, it's happened a couple of occasions because I dismiss it, all of it, right? It's like, I think it's a piss take. So it happened a couple of months ago where people were talking about it seriously, but I thought they were joking. So now I start taking the piss, and like I felt the temperature of the room changing. I was like, what are you talking about? You all sound like Brian from down the road. I mean, it was all a bunch of black people, but it was your classic northern suburbs dickheads, like, yeah, I'm a Dorsey, and yeah, it's just so important to know. I'm like, what are you people talking about? So that didn't go too well for me.
Basically, you pissed them all off. Yeah,
and I didn't know anybody there. Even worse, I ruined the whole thing.
It's our discussion about the pastors this morning probably pissed off a few people too, because some people really they don't like those things to be challenged. Take the argument from authority, and a pastor is more important than Gareth or Leigh-Ann or Mbulelo's opinion. So when you say that you don't take sangomas seriously, then some people are like, "Oh my God, heretic! How dare you?" It's a big deal to them. Mbulelo is upset he can't flip-flop into Zulu. Jealous down, dude, says Basitsan. Yeah, because you do flip from Xhosa to Pedi, right?
Yeah. No, it depends who's doing well. Dali Tambo, I'm having none of that. Khalima Motlante, I'm having all of that, It depends which version of Xhosa we're presenting. So, absolutely, I will flip-flop. I'm not loyal.
Snaye says, I'm double Zulu, Mbulelo, my surname and my tribe. And I must agree with you, we are a very arrogant tribe. Oh, God, we're not going down this street. Oh, my God. All right. So Snaye says, it does irritate me, actually. I think the Xhosas are the most interesting tribe in South Africa, very smart and talented. But again, let's not generalize.
No, but it's true. I mean.
Well.
He's going to take that one. That's for sure.
Yeah, let's not generalize, but this one just so happens to be the one that's true. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all we got time for this morning, but well done for making it into the first morning of a brand new week. And we will be here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to look after you and take you through the rest of it. Let us know what's on your mind. You can get hold of us at contact@cliffcentral.com. And big thank you to Dr. Wayne this morning for sharing his collection with us on Collectomania, which is, of course, brought to you by the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop. Go and see them, by the way, if you want to start a collection and get yourself some precious metals as an investment and in order to make your collection a little bit more interesting. Nothing like having a bit of gold in them there hills.
Bit of bling. Yeah.
Bit of bling. Do it. Do it today. You can get hold of them by going to their website. That's the easiest way to find them. You can buy silver and gold and platinum and all kinds of things. It's a good idea to do it. So there it is. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Have a good day.